Excellencies, dear colleagues, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to who is with us on WebEx or is now watching the video of the event. The Geneva Environment Network and its partners joined the permanent mission of Kenya and the permanent mission of Portugal to the United Nations in Geneva in warmly welcoming you for this third Geneva Blue Talk, organized in the run-up to the United Nations Ocean Conference convening in Lisbon in less than 1 month now. In the run-up to this major conference, Blue Talks are taking place around the world to discuss the core issues that will be addressed at the conference, including in Geneva, where numerous issues are both at the heart of International Geneva and of the United Nations Ocean Conference. Many institutions from Geneva will be present in Lisbon and have been reaching out to us on the various side events they will be organizing. Before we proceed with the opening of this event, let me remind you that you can raise your questions by using the Q&A box, which we will address in the Q&A session of this event. It is my pleasure to introduce you to the moderator of today's session, Mina Hebs, the head of the International Union for Conservation of Nature Ocean team. IUCN is one of the key stakeholders in International Geneva, contributing to the ocean agenda. It's a pleasure to welcome her and our other guests today. Mina, over to you.
Thank you very much, Diana. Your Excellencies, distinguished participants joining us online, a very, very warm welcome to you all to this high-level briefing on the UN Ocean Conference, which Diana rightly pointed out is happening in less than a month away, starting with a youth forum organized by the Sustainable Ocean Alliance, followed by the conference 27th to the 1st of July. Which will be co-hosted by Kenya and Portugal. So we're all looking forward to being in Lisbon, and the momentum has been building up. So today, this is actually going to close the series with the third and final Blue Talks of Geneva, which is focusing on giving a briefing to different stakeholders. So without kind of further ado, we have a great lineup of speakers that you will hear from. We will also have the opportunity to finish off with some Q&A. So we hope you have your questions ready. So without kind of further ado, I'd like to invite His Excellency Ambassador Peter Thomson, UN Secretary General Special Envoy for the Ocean. Peter, please, I welcome you to take this virtual stage and try to kind of set the scene for the UN Ocean Conference and some of the expectations. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mina. I've just unmuted myself, so I hope you can all hear me. So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first of all courtesies observed. I'm not quite sure who the audience is, but I see His Excellency Ben Oguto joining us there from Moscow. Many thanks for the opportunity of addressing you today. It's not long now, as Mina has just said before. Many of us will meet in person in Lisbon at the UN Ocean Conference. That's 27 June to 1st July, or earlier for those of us going to the special events on the weekend before, and you will hear about those during the course of this briefing. So I look forward to seeing you then. As I'm sure you know, the UN Ocean Conferences are held in support of SDG 14, the UN's Sustainable Development Goal to conserve and sustainably use the ocean's resources. And it's my firm belief that SDG 14 and the sustainable blue economy, which is at its heart, are crucial for humanity's future on this planet. The ocean's health is vital to us all, vital in the truest sense of the word, necessary for life. Just consider the fact that over 50% of the planet's oxygen is produced in the ocean, and that statement has all the veracity it needs. That's why my daily mantra is no healthy planet without a healthy ocean, and the ocean's health is measurably in decline. The measurement of that decline is observable in rates of habitat destruction, in overfishing, the subsidizing of industrial fishing fleets, through the polluting source-to-sea flow of chemicals and plastics, and through accelerating rates of the ocean's acidification, deoxygenation, and warming, leading to worldwide death of coral, changing ocean currents, transformation of marine ecosystems, and inexorably rising sea levels. Sounds like a long list, but it's a much longer one. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we can stop the decline of the ocean's health, and we can do so in 2022. And we made a great start in Nairobi in February with UNEA's agreement to begin work on a binding global treaty to end plastic pollution. We must continue this positive momentum by ending harmful fisheries subsidies through the WTO in Geneva this week. And I hope that anybody present who has any influence on the delegations attending that WTO Ministerial Council stresses the importance for us all of the banning of harmful fisheries subsidies, some $20 to $30 billion worth of public funds going to mainly for the enjoyment of industrial fishing fleets out there chasing diminishing stocks of fish. So that must end. And if we can do that, we will, along with Nairobi, have ticked a very big box. We can also do so by agreeing in New York upon a robust and operable BB&J treaty for governance of the high seas. We can also add the 30 by 30 target at the biodiversity COP in Kunming later in the year. Huge advantages for both the planet and the ocean if we adopt the 30 by 30 target. And of course, by moving the climate finance needle decisively in the direction of the sustainable blue economy, humanity's future, at UNFCCC's COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in November. But 2022's highlight opportunity for SDG 14 progress will be the UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon. As I've been saying, we're going to launch there a great fleet of science-based solutions, heavily powered by innovation and partnerships, as requested by the member states. And I urge you all to bring the best of your ideas, solutions, and resources to the conference in Lisbon next month. I'm very confident that those ideas and the innovation and the resources will be the outcome from the Lisbon conference. There's enough now on the table to see that our success will be forthcoming. We have already heard from New York that member states have agreed to the political declaration, which has been under negotiation for many years in New York by member states. And so that will be adopted at the conference in Lisbon. We had received hundreds of requests for side event. Unfortunately, supply of space was greatly overcome by the demand for these side events. So as well as holding them within the blue zone, they're now happening around the conference in the Lisbon vicinity. We have pretty much finalized the panels and co-chairs and moderators for the 8 interactive dialogues that member states have mandated, and they will be the moment of truth for us in assessing the progress of SDG 14. So the hard work is at hand, ladies and gentlemen. You will hear during this briefing, as I've said, about the special events. You will hear about some of the side events, and I encourage you to ask questions, because looking at this panel, I see all the expertise that we need to give you the answers you need. We must stop the decline of the ocean's health. And as I've described in my words today, we can do so as early as this year. And that is not a throwaway line. It's very doable. That's it's vital, again, that word vital in its truest sense, that the international community does not squander this year's unparalleled confluence of opportunities for ocean action. And the best opportunity of all, of course, is the UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon at the end of June. I thank you for your attention, and I look forward to meeting many of you at the UN Ocean Conference. Thank you, Mina.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Thompson, for that very, very stark message that you provided, but also that this is really the moment of truth to assess progress. So thank you as well for introducing a bit of ocean optimism, as well as really looking at, for having the confidence that success is indeed forthcoming. So we look forward to that. So thank you once again. I now would like to hand over to His Excellency Ambassador Benson Ogutu, who is a consulate and advisor, planning committee for the UN Ocean Conference, and ambassador to the Russian Federation from Kenya. From a co-convener perspective, Ambassador, what are your expectations for this conference? The floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minna. Good afternoon to you all. I want to, first of all, acknowledge Ambassador Peter Thompson for setting the stage for us. Excellencies and dear participants, at the outset, I want just to thank the organizers for inviting us to be part of this high-level briefing session of the UN 2022 Oceans Conference, which is part of the ongoing Geneva Blue Talks. In my short presentation, I'll just share with you a brief background and overview of the conference, the status of updates on the preparations, expected outcomes both of the conference and associated side events. As we've rightfully been told, Kenya and Portugal will be co-hosting this event. This is the second Oceans Conference, the first one being in 2017, that, as you all know, came up with a declaration, our ocean, our future, a call for action. This declaration was a major step in the reversing the declining health of the ocean. That, along with other 1,000 plus voluntary contributions that were made, commitments that were made towards implementation of SDG 14, constituted a very highly successful outcome of the 2017 conference. In between, or 1.5 years thereafter, Kenya, Japan, and Canada hosted the first ever global Sustainable Blue Economy Conference in November 2018 in Nairobi. This conference was predicated on two major pillars. One pillar of sustainability, dealing with issues of climate change, waste management, pollution control, and the second pillar, productivity, which addressed itself to the accelerated growth, job creation, poverty alleviation, and so forth. And thereafter, if you all remember, we had a proliferation of so many other blue economy conferences because of the interest and that was generated by the successful outcome of that conference in Nairobi. Now, recognizing the need to maintain the momentum and political will garnered in addressing the challenges faced in maintaining healthy, productive oceans, Kenya and Portugal championed the resolution 73-292 that gave rise to the convening of the conference, which is going to be taking place in Portugal in June this year. It is expected that this conference will build on the success of the 2017 conference in New York. It's also hoped that it will provide an opportunity to galvanize action through solution-oriented partnerships, financial pledges, and voluntary commitments aimed at reversing the decline of the health of the ocean and, at the same time, increasing productivity in the ocean. Just an overview of the conference itself. It will be featuring plenary sessions, 8 interactive dialogues, special events, and side events. The theme of the conference, as you all know, is scaling up ocean action based on science and innovation for the implementation of SDG 14. The various interactive dialogues will also have their respective sub-themes. I will omit not to mention them here in the interest of time, but all this is available on the website of the conference itself. As I said, the conference will have the official meetings, which will be basically the plenary sessions, the 8 interactive dialogues, the drafting groups, regional groups, and so forth. We'll then also have a special events, and there are 4 main ones. One regarding the Sustainable Blue Economy Investment Forum. There's going to be a youth side event, a special one, a high-level water forum or symposium, and one that will be dealing with local government program pertaining to governance and their contribution towards matters of the ocean. You all recall that also during the SBEC conference in Nairobi, we had also another side event that dealt with mayors and governors, and this will be something akin to what took place in Nairobi. And then there'll be other high-level events that also will take place, But I will not dwell much on that because I know my colleague, Ambassador Alexandra, will be able to elaborate further on those events that I'm alluding to. Of course, there'll be several side events where member states and other stakeholders have been invited to. There's been a lot of enthusiasm, and we see that they'll be contributing greatly to this, what is at the outset a very multifaceted conference about the oceans. Kenya will also be having several side events of its own with other partners, and I want to thank them for what they have contributed so far in our preparatory process. Going back to the plenary sessions or the meetings that we alluded to earlier, there'll be several, but the final one is expected to conclude with inter alia reporting on the interactive dialogues, to be followed by the adoption of a brief, very concise and action-oriented and intergovernmentally agreed declaration, which, as you have been told, the teams that have been working on it in New York seem to have done a fantastic job and have come to very good consensus on that. With regard to the interactive dialogues, there'll be 8 of them, as I said, and they will be co-chaired by participants from various parts of the world, but basically one is expected to come from a developing country and another one from a developed country. And the selection of the co-chairs, as I understand, has now been finalized. And also has been told to you by Ambassador Peter Thompson, the selection of moderators and panelists is also in the process of finalization. Now, what do we expect out of this conference? In accordance with that resolution that was that guides the conference and the conduct of the conference, as well as the expected outcomes, it is expected to have a negotiated declaration, which, as I said, will be very brief and concise, and should be action-focused, highlighting the science-based and innovative areas of action in support of SDG 14. Then, of course, there'll be a report that will be containing the summaries of the co-chairs of the interactive dialogues, and last but not least, a list of voluntary commitments made by all stakeholders. How to do this commitment is in the website, and I'm told that in excess of almost 1,800 commitments have already been made, and want to encourage others to continue associating themselves and coming up with also their commitments to be made. The status of preparations of the conference, our 2 countries, Kenya and Portugal, together with the UN and other stakeholders, have been working tirelessly to deliver on an impactful conference. Kenya and Portugal will also be the co-presidents of the conference itself. And as per the UN resolution, there will be the other alternate presidents or vice presidents that will be helping us in the work of the conference execution. As far as the technical preparations are concerned, this is the purview of the UN DESA, and they've been doing a fantastic job, and they'll be coming up with all the necessary documentation, background documents, concept notes, programs, and draft outcomes of the various segments in each of those other segments we are talking about. The political declaration, I think I've already mentioned that one, and I want to very much acknowledge the hard work done by the co-facilitators, Denmark and Grenada, to have achieved what they've achieved, and therefore we expect to have a conference which will be booming with success. I also wish to note that there have been other informal preparatory working groups that have been able to help in the preparations, especially of the concept notes that will be used during the interactive dialogues that will be taking place. And they've done also a fantastic job, and we thank them for that. There is a whole array of logistical matters that have gone into the preparation of this conference. Again, UN DESA, the UN team working with the Portuguese as being the main host, have come up with a very comprehensive logistical note, which I believe is available on the website and will be shared as and when necessary in case of any changes that may come. But again, I will leave details to the UN and our co-host to elaborate on the rest as appropriate. The preparation process has also put in place a very robust communication strategy spearheaded by the UN. This is ongoing. Again, I'll reserve this to the UN to elaborate as and when necessary when they take up the floor. On our part as co-hosts, Portugal and Kenya, we've been involved in a series collaborative briefing sessions, the so-called Blue Talks, one of which is this one, which is taking place to popularize and galvanize participation in this conference. And I would just want to mention that it is emphasizing on mobilizing participation as well as resources to enable this conference succeed. We'll come now maybe just to the last point, which is the funding of the conference. And in parts, just to state that states and international donors, as well as the private sector, financial institutions, foundations, and other donors who are in a position to do so are encouraged to make voluntary contributions to a trust fund in support of preparations of the conference, and also to support in particular the participation of representatives of developing countries, priority being given to the least developed countries, as well as the small island developing states. In other words, we don't want anybody to be left behind. This is a global challenge requiring concerted global solutions. To conclude, it is my hope that the Blue Talks, such as this one, will generate the much needed interest from all so as to enhance participation and awareness towards the expectations and the opportunities of the second United Nations Oceans Conference in Lisbon. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for that very comprehensive overview of the Ocean Conference, both in the preparatory actions and what we can actually expect coming from it. So I think we all kind of join you in also thanking both co-conveners, I mean, the co-host, Ambassador Thompson, and everybody involved in UNDESA for all the hard work you've done leading up to this point. I've also noted the special events that you mentioned, particularly the high-level water forum, a symposium, which I think is also very key. So you can link SDG 14 and SDG 6, and also applaud you for your kind of spearheading or Kenya for the first Global Blue Economy Conference, which will also be a special forum, special event. And as for the declaration, I understand that that has now kind of the final draft has been concluded. We also like to thank from other IGOs and civil society in general for the inclusiveness in terms of being able to comment on the political declaration, as well as the involvement in the preparatory working groups. And I think that has worked well in terms of cooperation and led by various international organizations and UN entities. So we're all looking forward to that. And again, you know, we hear your emphasis on really galvanizing action, which is very timely with the theme of the conference, and ensuring that it's a very inclusive conference, allowing, you know, special accreditation to so many organizations. I think civil society is very grateful for that, and to make sure that this is inclusive conference, because we all have a stake, and we want to make sure that, as you said, no one is left behind. So thank you very much for that very comprehensive overview. Thank you. Now, I would now like to move over to Ambassador Alexandre Letao, the Special Envoy for Climate Affairs and Vice President, UN Ocean Conference, the organizing committee from Portugal. We would like to hear the other co-host perspective on this conference. So a very, very warm welcome. Lovely to have you with us today, Ambassador. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear ambassadors Peter Thompson and Ogutu. I had a presentation, yes, that's it. So much that I was willing to say has been said already by both ambassadors Thompson and Ogutu, and thank you for that, because it will allow me to, next please, to go forward, just reminding some dates that you may be familiar with. So this has been mentioned, the first UN Ocean Conference in New York, the role that Portugal and Singapore had as co-facilitators to adopt a political document, Our Ocean, Our Future, and call for action. What has been said by Ambassador Ogutu, that both countries have announced their readiness to host the second United Nations Ocean Conference, and then the agreement in which Kenya would host the first big blue economy conference in the world, I think, in Nairobi in 2018. And we would host here in Lisbon. Next, we would also host here the UN Ocean Conference. Therefore, in May 2019, the resolution 73/292 established this UN Ocean Conference with its procedures and decided that it would be held in 2020, but due to COVID, this was postponed. And then in September 2021, decision 75/578 updated the first resolution, kept the essential, and defined a new date that will be from 27 June to 1st July next. That resolution reminds that the SDGs are integrated, indivisible, and therefore it's a key point for Portugal. And here I'm a little bit speaking as a special envoy for climate in line with Peter Thompson. Something that really strikes us, at least here in Portugal, where we consider the sea and the ocean action like a pillar of our climate and energy diplomacy and first-line priority, is how can we imagine climate action without 71% of the Earth's surface? How can we imagine climate action without considering the oceans and the seas where that produce most of the oxygen, have the highest potential for absorbing carbon? They are the milieu of the biggest part of portion of biodiversity. By the way, they have the highest potential to feed a world growing population or provide renewable efficiency energy. Thus, for us, it's very strange to imagine how can we imagine some kind of imaginary border where land, sea, and atmosphere are not totally integrated, where the SDGs could have some kind of boundaries. This is totally artificial, and this does not work. So, next, please. This is one of the motives why Portugal was willing to organize, to co-host this UN Ocean Conference. And the other is, of course, our long-time commitment to multilateralism. And so, picking both together, it was quite foreseeable that we would apply for being co-hosts, and this was accepted. So now we have, in less than 1 month of time, this conference with this team, Scaling Up Ocean Action based on science and innovation for the implementation of SDG 14, stock-taking partnerships and solutions. Next, please. I already said this. We have all this framework where ocean is totally decisive for climate, in our opinion. So we want to raise the nexus ocean climate. We want to highlight it. We did so in the COP26 in Glasgow. It was a hard battle to fight. I sometimes say that I was absolutely surprised to listen to a European colleague telling me that this climate question is already so complex, and you Portuguese want to bring an additional layer of complexity with the sea. But then I said, okay, but how do you want to manage this without the seas? So this for us is a priority. And of course, this conference comes after a very intense semester of several events from Palau to Brest in France, from Nairobi to Stockholm, where somehow ocean will be more or less in evidence, but we look at all these events in a complementary manner in order to feed the UN Ocean Conference and to allow the UN Ocean Conference itself to feed the COP27, because we really want to strengthen the references to the oceans and the seas and ocean action in the final text of COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh. Next, please. So we have urgency in action. We need to rely on ambitious national plans with ocean-based solutions. We need to promote, respect, and enforce international treaties approved for better governance. As Peter Thompson said, we really need also to apply to implement the 30% of marine protected areas and really protect it, not just a declaration, but effective protection, because this is absolutely critical, for instance, for the stocks of fish and other questions that are related, directly related to the economy, even the classical sea economy, and not only the blue economy in the sense of a sustainable blue economy. So we need to create, to innovate, to accelerate this dynamic, responsible, and sustainable blue economy. Next, please. So this will be done through how? Well, of course, combined efforts of governments, economic actors, civil society experts, equitable access to scientific solutions for sustainable exploration of the oceans, efficient mobilization of blue capital with creative solutions, and Ruben will speak about this later. When we speak about creativity, Ruben is the right person to that. And of course, mobilization of people. Each one of us can make the difference with responsible choices. And the UN Ocean Conference has also these two roles. One is to highlight that there is existing funding for creative, innovating, and efficient economic solutions, and also to tell everybody in the world that we are all concerned and we can do something for this cause. Next, please. So, as Ambassador Ogutu said, we have several goals, official goals. We have also these ones that I've mentioned, so I would skip to the next slide. So I'm being a little bit erratic here. And as Ambassador Ogutu said, the resolution 73/292 has three, let's say, official goals. The declaration, which is, as we seen, has been negotiated in principle, so it is a very successful outcome and something that deserves our best gratitude to the facilitators. A report with the summaries by the co-chairs of the interactive dialogues, and as Ambassador Thompson said, these interactive dialogues are very important, they are decisive, and the proof of their importance is the level of the co-chairs. And I, for instance, would give the example of the Tuesday morning interactive dialogue on blue economy, which will be chaired by the Prime Ministers of Norway and Cape Verde. So this tells you a lot about the level that we expect and that we will have here, and the attention that is paid to the interactive dialogues, and of course, a list of voluntary commitments for the SDG 14 registered after the first UN Ocean Conference. And this is very, very important. We have to stocktake to see what happened to the commitments made and to try to have a lot of commitments, tangible commitments at the UN Ocean Conference and its side events or special events. Next. So, of course, participants are all that you imagine. I would just like to bring two numbers here. The first is that we have 8,818 accredited bodies. Of course, not all of them will be in Lisbon, but this means a lot. But of course, many are from previous events, accreditations by inherence from previous events. So one relevant data here is that at the first UN Ocean Conference, 108 entities asked for specific accreditation. Now for this UN Ocean Conference 2022, 942 entities requested accreditation. So this gives, this is somehow a picture of how the interest for oceans is evolving in a positive trend. So this is very good for us. Next, please. And of course, this raises challenges. How will we try to achieve the goals? The plenary sessions from 27 morning to 1st July morning, except on 27 afternoon. And next to them, in parallel, the 8 interactive dialogues, one for each afternoon or morning and team, and then the special events and side events that have been referred to. Next. The general program of the UN Ocean Conference is this one. As I said, in blue you have the plenary sessions, in somehow cream you have the interactive dialogues, and this gives you a framework, picture of what will happen during that week. Next. The interactive dialogues I was referring to are 8, and their themes are here. You can see them. First is addressing marine pollution. Second, promoting and strengthening sustainable ocean-based economies. Third, managing, protecting, conserving and restoring marine and coastal ecosystems. 4, minimizing and addressing ocean acidification, deoxygenation and ocean warming. 5, making fisheries sustainable and providing access for small-scale artisanal fishers to marine resources and markets. Next. The 6th one is increasing scientific knowledge and developing research capacity and transfer of marine technology. The 7th is enhancing the conservation and sustainable use of the oceans through international law, and mainly the UNCLOS. And 8, leveraging interlinkages between Sustainable Development Goal 14 and other goals towards implementation of 2030 agenda. Next. The special events, as it was said, there are many side events, but there are 4 that are called special. Why? Because they correspond to priorities. They were requested by the UN, and they are organized by Portugal, Kenya, and the UN. So the first of them will in fact be the Youth and Innovation Forum. And I would like to highlight here something. This is not just a classical youth forum, very much focused on awareness, discussion, debate about the ocean problems. There is here the word innovation, because this is the melting of a classical format of a youth forum with an innovation competition called Innovaton that used to be done in the same setting. And so in the first working day, 25, young people will be discussing problems and debating all the solutions, possible solutions, but then they will be 24 hours in a beach working on solutions, practical solutions to be implemented by public and private entities, but mainly to be led by youth. And on June 25, the high-level forum, the actual name of it is Localizing Ocean Action, Local and Regional Governments. This will happen in Matosinhos, next to Porto. It's rather far away from Lisbon, but it is very, very important. Next, please. And I'm sorry for that noise, but the sonorization is not amazing.
That's fine, but if you could kindly wrap up.
I'm just finishing. On the afternoon of 27, the high-level symposium on water aims at bridging SDG 6 and SDG 14, the whole cycle of water. And finally, the Sustainable Blue Economy and Investment Forum is, I don't know, it's one of the main special events of the conference, and it will likely be the biggest gathering of blue economy in 2022. The level is very, very high. We will have, of course, the heads of state of Portugal, Kenya, but others too. Many UN agencies, leaders too, big companies. And the point here about this one, and please give me 1 minute to tell this. This is about two things. One is to highlight that as in climate on land, let's say, so nothing will be met, no goals will be met without the economy and the private sector. And there is a vibrant and innovative and high potential blue economy that is there to be used and to be promoted in order to find clean, decarbonized and efficient solutions. What is the question? This is the first point. The second point is, what is the question? Financing. Financing is always the key, and it will also be the key in COP27. So this forum will look at ways to explain to those who have ideas, who have projects, how they can mobilize the increasingly existent funding for blue economy due to the pressure of stakeholders, public opinion, and governments. Next, and finally, my point is about the side events. 570 requests of side events, 72 virtual, but unfortunately only 78 will fit in the blue zone. So what happened is that we have asked to their promoters to merge some of them, but I believe that more than 200 side events will be somewhere around town. And one of the locations is promoted by Ruben, who will be speaking after, and you can see the images here. But the point is that Lisbon will be some sort of polycentric ocean party. So the point is, welcome to Lisbon. And as Ambassador Thompson said, I look forward meeting many of you soon in Lisbon, reminding just that the registration for stakeholders, not official delegations, but other partners and NGOs, ends on 3 June as the registration for the Sustainable Blue Economy and Investment Forum. And the local forum at Muzins is on 10 June. So hope to see you soon, and thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you very much, ambassadors, and my apologies for rushing you towards the end. But before we hear from Ruben, we actually have one more speaker in between. But thank you very much for those remarks, and I think you really framed it very nicely, and it was complementary to what was said before. And really, what really shined through is your commitment for multilateralism. Climate change, you made the linkages, these are global problems, and we need international cooperation. Also making the linkages to the other important multilateral environmental agreements. You mentioned the COP and the linkages to climate change is very obvious. We also shouldn't forget the ocean, the climate and biodiversity and ocean nexus, and also leading up to Kunming. So thank you very much for those remarks and actually bringing it all the way down to project level, and that's what we need. And I look forward to seeing you in this polycentric party, and polycentric governance may not be a bad approach to many of even the high seas. So thank you very much. I'd like to actually invite Diego Vin Sensei, who is the Chief of Staff from the Ministry of Environment and Energy from Costa Rica. We would really like to hear about your blue commitments. So welcome, the floor is yours, and grateful if you can also keep to the time. Thank you.
Good morning to the people on our side of the Atlantic, and good afternoon to the people on the other side of the Atlantic. Your Excellencies and the rest of the panelists and attendees to this meeting. On behalf of Costa Rica, I would like to reassure our commitment to the Blue Agenda, or the Oceans Agenda, and the successful completion of SDG 14. Just last year, we launched several important initiatives in this direction, in this agenda, from lesser matters to huge matters. We launched our marine residue management plan for 2130, which was very well taken by different stakeholders here in Costa Rica. It was much needed. We also created our environmental assessment policy to regulate mariculture and aquaculture activities, new developments and the current ones, or the ones already existing. We didn't have a legal framework for these activities, so we we created a robust executive decree to create this legal framework. And what I believe is the most important achievement in the past few years in our blue or oceans agenda was the expansion of Cocos Island National Park and underwater seamounts. It was a rough process with different stakeholders and different actors here in Costa Rica, but we achieved something that I believe is has to be, if not the biggest, or at least one of the biggest expansions worldwide. Now we have a 53,000 square kilometers protected area in our Eastern Pacific coast, surrounding Cocos Island and underwater seamounts, which is also linked to the CEMAR initiative, or the Pacific Corridor Waterways, which also has participations of the government of Panama, Colombia, and Ecuador, and we created a 500,000 square kilometer marine protected area between the four countries, which I also believe, if it's not the biggest of its kind, has to be at least one of the biggest. We are fully committed to our oceans. As Costa Ricans, it's in our DNA. We have a strong oceans agenda. This new administration will keep it that way. And as you can see from the back, I have two beautiful babies, and we're trying to build an ocean. Please ignore the zebra and the lion, but my babies think that because zebras and lions come from warm places, they should be in the ocean. But I always tell my older son and my newborn that by respecting all environment and all living things, in return, they're respecting themselves. So this pretty much sums up the general feeling that we as a nation, Costa Rica, have regarding our oceans and our water agenda. So thank you very much, and I'm open for questions later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Diego. Excellent, and we enjoy the background as well of your room and the little description there as well. Great to hear from Costa Rica. In many ways, a pioneer and a lot of things that you do, and obviously being surrounded by two oceans, not just one, by two. Since we're running a little bit behind schedule, I will quickly move over to Ruben Eras, who's the Secretary General for Forum Oceano. There's been a lot of talk about blue economy and the investment forum that we're all looking forward to, that will be held in Lisbon. So I'd like to invite you to talk to us a little bit about this conference from a business and blue economy perspective. So very much welcome, Ruben, and I'll give you the floor now. Thank you very much.
Very well. I'll be quite efficient in my use of time because it's going right. So what is first of all Forum Oceano? So it's again so for the invitation in being this such an important event. Also good to see again virtually Peter Thompson. So we are Portugal's and Blue Economy Cluster, and also Alexandre Leitão. We are Portugal's Blue Economy Cluster, and we represent around 50% of Portugal's blue GDP, and we have about 152 members of all sectors of the blue economy. And we consider a sustainable economy as the planet's mega sector, because while fighting climate change, blue economy can provide sustainable and safe seafood, energy, transport, as well as assets that can be applied to health and cosmetics. And of course, ports and tourism also play a vital role in developing a sustainable economy, and also have local impact. We are also had the privilege of being designated umbrella organizations for the UN Ocean Conference, which will drive us a lot in this goal. And this goal is to, put the blue and the blue economy as a catalyzer that for a new middle class entrepreneurship So blue unicorns are very important for the 1 million valuation companies. But what is really important is that you have a lot of companies doing business in blue in a sustainable way. So I think this moment of the UN Ocean Conference can be the moment where we can have and communicate a blue dream that is for all, is to build the world's most proper sustainable ocean economy that creates jobs, wealth, while restoring oceans' health and biodiversity. And how can you do that? Looking at the EU Green Deal, which it has a very important, I would say, core concept, is that you have to digitalize, decarbonize, and circularize. So what does this mean? If I want to have a competitive blue business, blue ESG business, or sustainable business, I have to be profitable while achieving a positive and environmental social impact. That's the key equation. And for doing that, you have to be able enough to manage the twin industrial transition. So digital plus green. Why? Because only you can have the right information for re-engineering the processes for decarbonizing and circularizing in a way to close the industrial process, to reduce waste and reduce the environmental footprint. So you have to change the paradigm from a linear perspective in engineering of the processes and value chains to a non-linear and circular. So this is, the challenge for, tackling and building a prosperous economy that fights climate change and restores ocean health while also it creates jobs. Where are this new blue ESG power? And we'll have this demonstration of these solutions and talks in several side events and also in the core of the UN Ocean Conference. You have it in the deep tech area. So it's artificial intelligence, materials, robotics for ocean observation and ocean industries. Getting the right information from the ocean and the right monetization is key for having the right NPA management, the right ocean management, and also to build businesses like aquaculture and others, which impact could be good in the CO2 area and other areas, but impact negatively other areas of the ecosystems. So information technology, high advanced deep tech is key. Then you have the ocean renewable energies. Floating offshore wind is going to scale up in this decade, and it's going to be most probably the highest source and accessible source of green hydrogen. Then you have all the technology for greening ports and shipping. New propulsion systems that use, the new wind cells, tech wind cell. So using the offshore wind for propelling container ships. This is not, I would say a dream or something that is not happening. It is already happening. There are several demonstration projects going on, and we'll have several entrepreneurs and several organizations in our side event area that are going to show how these technologies work and how they can be a very interesting business. In blue tourism, you have to, in leisure nautics, use more solar power and use more sustainable energy as the energy source of leisure nautics. Looking at seafood, sustainable seafood and fisheries, you have, now really very, I would say, concrete examples of moving forward to the scaling up of aquaculture algae, of offshore aquaculture, that will permit to have a sustainable multi-trophic aquaculture with high technology and using a sustainable feeding system. And also here, the food products. Going to an example which the ambassador Peter Thompson says once in a while, and mentions once in a while, why don't you invent sea tofu? So the blue tofu, food is fashion, and there is a market there. And then you have also technology for ocean restoration, artificial reefs, new ways are, revving up for, that are fastening and accelerating coral growing and also the sea foresting. You have startups like Coral Vita and others that money is pouring in for financial products that finance this, for solutions that finance these technologies with financial products like blue bonds and other securitization solutions. So this is a dream that is already happening and materializing. And there is a lot of wealth to be produced with solutions that tackle climate change, reduce the environmental footprint of decarbonizing and circularizing, and here digitalization is key for achieving that. But we have to also look at careers. So it's very important that the right training and the right skills go for the blue profession. You have to have the rationale of a blue expert in a way. So if you look at the fisherman, it's not a well-qualified profession. A fisherman today has to be savvy and digital. He has to know about oceanography and marine biology, the law of the sea in his area. Most of them are entrepreneurs, so they have to have the right finance and economic skills, and also has to have maritime engineering. So the same rationale should also apply to other areas. So a biologist has to know in its portfolio of competencies the other areas of the ocean. So you can have a systemic view, because we are towards a systemic challenge, and we need a systemic rationale and systemic competencies to be successful in tackling this challenge. So all of this will be, discussed, as my friend Alexandre Leitão has referred, at the Sustainable Blue Economy Investment Forum, and it's also from Ambassador Vin Sensei, and also at our side event area at the Portugal Pavilion, where during that week you have many side events going on, also business meetings, and also there will be a lot of business courses. So you'll have the opportunity to register also in our B2B platform that is going online next week for connecting with others for making the change happen. And this is the final message I want to say. The Ocean Conference and all these opportunities is human connection to put innovation into action, so that we can be successful in saving the ocean, saving the planet, and bringing prosperity to society. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ruben. Very exciting presentation, and really bringing the entrepreneurship into this, and for sharing your blue dream, which we all share. And it's not just about, moving into the blue growth and even, ensuring that no harm is made, but it's actually the positive contribution, whether it's to biodiversity, nature. So really bringing in also both environmental and societal needs, and for the benefits, and really illustrating the breadth of the blue economy and the competences needed. So thank you very, very much for sharing that with us today. We have a couple of questions, and I know we're out of time, so if you could also try to keep the answers fairly brief. The first question I have is for Ambassador Peter Thompson. It's really asking the questions about the fact that Geneva is home to a lot of international organizations. It's also the place where a lot of multilateral negotiations take place, but ocean sustainability is often absent from these processes, with a few exceptions being the WTO harmful fisheries subsidies, as well as plastics. So how can the international community in Geneva support the UN Ocean Conference and ultimately SDG 14? Thank you. Peter, would you like to answer that question?
Thank you very much. I apologize for my screen going very dark. There's a huge thunder and lightning storm going over London at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's got very dark around here. Look, whether you're based in Geneva or whether you're based in any of the other UN system headquarters, Nairobi or Vienna or Rome, or indeed where the regional commissions are all based, we're all in this together. There's absolutely no excuse for anybody to think that that the ocean is not their responsibility in life. And as I said before, it's vital. You know, it's 50% of your oxygen. And if you don't get that, you're just sort of missing the whole existential point of SDG 14's existence, and indeed the UN Ocean Conferences that support SDG 14. So I'll just say, look, the UN family, we're all in this together as everybody in every country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We also have a question with regards to, you know, the blue economy, and we've heard a lot about entrepreneurship. There's a question which is actually addressed to Costa Rica, which is the blue economy seems to be inclusive and cross-sectoral. Can you explain how the government was able to have everyone on board, including civil society and the private sector? So from a government perspective, what was the key to this success or being able to have this cross-sectoral inclusive approach? So do we still have Diego?
Yes, ma'am. I'm pleased to answer the question.
Great, thank you very much.
We used a basic technique, and with all this process that I mentioned in the past, marine residue management, environment assessment policy, and that all discussions regarding these big marine protected areas in Cocos National Park, we did tables, and we invited civil society, NGOs, governmental agencies. We try to involve every link of the chain, because it's a decision that even though it's taken by few, affects all of us, and the resources belong to all of us. And another interesting thing, if you have some time on YouTube, we have uploaded some videos of our mariculture projects here in Costa Rica. And you can see that most of these projects are led by women, because in the past, men used to fish and women stayed at home, and a lot of them are also single mothers, and they empower themselves, and now they lead these mariculture farms here in the country. But it had support of the government, but it was something that grew organically or spontaneously. These women in coastal areas, they began trying to produce or co-produce at their homes while their husbands were fishing. They began with these kind of projects. So it was, as I said before, it was a whole process of getting people involved in these tables to discuss all these policies that we try to launch. But in general, they were very well accepted, and they were built around the idea that it's supposed to include everyone, so no one was left behind.
Yes, thank you very much. So a couple of short, quick questions that's come in before we wrap up. One participant thanks for a very useful briefing, but they want to know very specifically when the actual program will be published on the website. Perhaps that's something that could be answered in the chat. There's also a question with regards addressed to Kenya and to IUCN, if there's any plans to actually get more countries involved in the Great Blue Wall initiative in Portugal. So I'm happy if Kenya is still on the line to answer, but there will be a voluntary commitment, which again others can join absolutely, and as well as the event. Details of the specific events and venues are yet to be confirmed, but I think in the next week this will happen and will be confirmed. So do we have Ambassador Ugutu still on the line?
Yes, I'm still there.
Anything you would like to add?
Well, no, just to thank you very much once again, but to say that all that you're doing is stressing the importance of full participation from all segments of society, civil society organizations, private sector, the government, and so forth, because matters oceans is matters that affect everybody, and everybody has got a stake in it. Financing has been a major hindrance towards fully, realizing a sustainable ocean economy, and therefore also inhibiting the full implementation of the SDG 14. It is in this regard that we also repeat the call for upscaling and coming up with new ambitious voluntary commitments can enable the global community to realize this noble cause. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those kind of final takeaway send-off. And we always like to invite people to have that kind of final message. So again, emphasizing the need for finance. So I was going to give the final word before we wrap up to Ambassador Peter Thomson. And it's very timely that there is actually a final question, which I think you can embed into your kind of concluding remarks. This is basically addressing that the ocean issues, they're so wide, there are many of them. But what are the points that the UN Special Envoy, US Special Envoy see as being the 2-3 crucial, absolutely crucial outcome of Lisbon? If you had to choose 2 or 3 crucial outcome of this conference, what would they be? Sorry, you're muted.
My response in taking on the challenge of being Special Envoy when the Secretary General asked me to do it was, let 1,000 flowers bloom. Because really there are 1,000 problems and there are 10,000 solutions to give us the secure ocean that we want for our children and grandchildren going forward. Look, I would like to see breakthroughs in the aquatic food side, transitioning to new forms of food. I watch my granddaughter eating seaweed rather than boiled sugar lollies, and I think, why did we eat sugar lollies when we were kids? She eats dried seaweed. Naughty. Transition, it's very much possible. We can move from being hunter-gatherers to farmers of the sea, and that's just rationalizing things. Everything that is required to be done is very doable, whether it's pollution control or fisheries management. And the hard one, though, is the control of our greenhouse gas emissions, because that's what's causing the decline of the ocean's health that I referred to in my earlier remarks. So I think my big takeaway would be that acceptance that everything is connected and that we have to just start acting right away on everything. I mean, we all know this. Let's break the paralysis that we've been in. We've accumulated all the knowledge. Let's go away from Lisbon with the partnerships that will make all this happen. We've got the innovative ideas, they're all lined up, but we need to connect the finance with the projects. And finance says there are no projects, and projects says there's no money. Well, that's just not true. So Lisbon will be all about connecting the dots, and we'll move on to better things. And I'm sure that when we get together for the 3rd UN Ocean Conference, we will have seen massive progress as a result of what we decided to do in Lisbon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that sums it up very well. And I would like to invite all the participants to give our distinguished panelists a very warm applaud. I think it's been absolutely a pleasure, very rich, very comprehensive. And we all look forward to meeting with you in Lisbon. We're there. I can almost feel the energy, the positivism. And I think this is going to be an excellent conference, and really looking forward to meeting you all there. Your presentation, this whole webinar has been recorded, and the summary will be available on the website, as well as, together with the other Blue Talks. So this is something that we can then watch again, and I hope you will all be not only present in Lisbon, but very approachable to engage in further conversation with all stakeholders present. So with that, we are going to actually close this meeting, end the meeting with a video. It's a recorded video, which is from His Excellency Macharia Kamau, the Principal Secretary for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Kenya. So once again, a very, very, very sincere thank you for your time and dedication and for all the work that you're doing. Thank you very much. And now over to His Excellency Macharia Kamau. Thank you.
Thank you, Mina.
Hello, everybody. It's wonderful to be part of this conversation that is taking place around the United Nations Oceans Conference, and particularly around the Blue Talks. We in Kenya have been extremely pleased with the amount of energy and engagement that has been generated by the Blue Talks globally. At last count, we had over 70 countries that were in the process of trying to organize Blue Talks. And this has created just the kind of momentum and interest and has generated the kind of commitment that we need to have in preparation for what will be one of the signature events of the United Nations and the international community calendar, which is the United Nations Oceans Conference, which shall be taking place in Lisbon and is co-hosted by Kenya and Portugal. So we really are very keen to make sure that everybody understands through these Blue Talks just how crucially important the oceans agenda is for planet Earth and for life as we know it on the planet. You hear a lot these days about the blue economy, and it's true, there is an entire economy. Nations have been built on the back of oceans. Some of the greatest nations in history have built their economies on the back of oceans. But we also hear of the blue societies, we hear of blue energy, we hear of many things, including education and others and technologies that are now linked to the opportunities and the challenges that we are facing around the oceans agenda. So for us, the Blue Talks are crucial, and your engagement in them means that we are able to send some very critical messages out there about what it is we need everybody to understand. Enough has been said already about the areas in which oceans are crucial for life as we know it, as I said earlier. We know that if we don't get the oceans agenda right, we are going to undermine every effort that we have for creating greater opportunities for transiting from energy conditions on Earth, the use of carbon-based energy products. We are going to undermine the consequences of all of that in trying to help us manage the climate change that is becoming so real in all of our lives. We all recognize that we're going to have to do things differently, without a doubt. Whether we're talking about the science and how we apply the science, whether we're talking about the education realm and how we mobilize people, and young people in particular, in changing how they engage in the reality of being on planet Earth, in ways in which they can enhance their protection of our planet, whether it is in engaging in how we manage pollution and these very issues that are so consequential to the oceans, for example, acidification, whether it is how we manage our interaction with the ecosystems, both on the planet, on Earth, as well as at sea, because these two are symbiotic in their relationship. All these things are going to become more and more crucial as we move forward. Right now, we are in the UN decade for sustainable development that is really focused on the issues of oceans. We know that we need to do some very crucial things in a timely fashion. And every one of the Sustainable Development Goals, every single one of them is somehow tied to Goal 14 and what the promise of Goal 14 is for the realization of the entire set of Sustainable Development Goals from Goal 1 right through to 17. And so we have to continue to regard the oceans agenda as hugely important. Kenya and Portugal have made a very serious commitment to playing their role as the co-hosts. We have seen an amazing amount of interest globally. We are anticipating a huge number of non-governmental organizations as well as private sectors and entities to be in Portugal. Of course, we also expect governments, and we expect policymakers, and we expect those in communities who drive community actions to also be in Portugal. And for Kenya and Portugal, we have created the conditions to make sure that all these stakeholders are in Portugal and are able to provide their contribution. Let me conclude by saying that we can say a lot about how crucially important the oceans agenda is. And we can say a lot about how crucially important the oceans agenda is for climate and the management of our climate moving forward. We can say a lot about how the oceans agenda is going to be so crucial to our food, the provision of food in global markets, and how the marine ecosystem is going to be such a crucial part of the food chains, and how we can make a better contribution and better use of those things. We can say all of these things, but until we change our behavior, until we change our commitment and our attitude towards the oceans, then everything that we are doing and saying will remain at the level of rhetoric. And I think this is the primary message of the Oceans Conference, that the time for now is a time of action. Action at the individual level, action at the community level, at governmental level, action through the private sector, action through the scientific community. Science is running behind the challenge that we are facing with the oceans agenda. And somehow we have to make the investments around science to make sure that science itself becomes part of that transformative change that we need to save our oceans and to make sure that our climate and our ecosystem is protected for all of us for a better future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mucharak Kamau. Those were excellent remarks, and time is everything. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but time is everything, and it's time for action. So with that, once again, thank you all, especially to everyone online. We're all going to Lisbon. We are investing in our daily life, the work that we do. We're going to Lisbon. We are committed to contribute. So we'll see you all in Lisbon. Thank you very much.